les voy a contar un poquito sobre esto que es la primera teleconferencia holográfica que se va a hacer en América Latina. Y se va a hacer además con experiencia y con tecnología de una empresa de jóvenes uruguayos, BBM Hologram. ¿Cómo funciona? Bueno, todos nos estamos preguntando un poco eso. Dudo que se los pueda explicar, pero lo cierto es que vamos a ver aquí virtualmente una persona tridimensionalmente. Una persona que está bastante lejos. Está ubicada en la Universidad de Stanford, aunque él es actualmente el profesor Vivek Wadhwa, es profesor invitado de la Facultad de la Información de la Universidad de Berkeley. ¿Cómo funciona todo esto? Bueno, en tiempo real. Lo que vemos nosotros es una proyección holográfica allí en esa pantalla. Vemos al conferencista en tamaño real, en tiempo real, pero virtual. Por supuesto, no está aquí con nosotros. ¿Cómo se logra? A través de una proyección sobre superficies transparentes. Hay ciertas condiciones específicas que la gente de BBM ha determinado que tiene que tener esta transmisión en vivo, este live streaming que se está haciendo desde la Universidad de Stanford. Les cuento un poquito sobre quién es el profesor Vivek Wadhwa. Como les decía, actualmente es profesor invitado de la Universidad de Berkeley. Su posición permanente es como director de investigación en el Centro de Emprendedurismo de la Escuela de Ingeniería de la Universidad de Duke. Actualmente también es miembro de investigación del Programa de Trabajo y Empleo en la Facultad de Derecho de Harvard. Es consultor de diferentes empresas, escribe columnas para el Washington Post y Bloomberg Business Week. Antes de ingresar al ámbito académico, donde actualmente está desarrollando sus actividades, fundó 2 compañías de software. Y hoy nos va a hablar sobre emprendedurismo global. Así que le damos la bienvenida. Welcome, Mr. Wadhwa. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. This reminds me of Star Wars, you know, with the lightsaber and Darth Vader and so on. So this is a new experience for me also. But it's nice to be able to meet all of you. You know, I have been researching entrepreneurship. I've been researching global policy. I've been speaking to many governments who are trying to build Silicon Valley. And everyone wants to know how can they build an innovation system. The reason why it's important is, you know, for example, in the United States and America, 100% of all the jobs, all the net new jobs are created by startups. All of the innovation comes from startups. Silicon Valley is a cradle of innovation right now in the technology sector because it's all happening in technology. So what governments try to do is that they try to copy Silicon Valley. Everyone thinks they can recreate Silicon Valley. And what they do is that they bring consultants in, like Michael Porter and other big consulting groups, and they get the same advice all the time. They say, well, first you need to have a research university. Then you need to have a venture capital fund. And then you have to have industries there. And then you wait and the magic will happen. You build a very fancy science park, you build all these nice buildings, and you put these ingredients there, and the magic will happen. There have been hundreds and hundreds of such experiments all over the world. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent on them. Do you know how many have succeeded? 0. There have been no successes like that because they don't understand what the key is to building innovation and to building entrepreneurship. This is what I've been researching. I've been trying to understand why is it that Silicon Valley is the only major technology center in the world? Why is it that innovation is booming here and not in other places? I've also spent a lot of time in India and China recently to understand what's happening over there. You know, China, if you go to China, it's magnificent how much advancement China has made and how modern the country looks. And China is spending tens of billions of dollars on research, on heavy-duty R&D, research and development. Except there's no innovation coming out of China. China is a giant copying machine. India is the exact opposite. India, the whole country looks like it's crumbling. It looks like a poor, you know, third world country. Yet when you go inside the research labs, you see major R&D happening, major innovation happening. Why is it that that's happening? Now, if you compare the two countries, India and China, there's entrepreneurship happening in both of those countries. Well, Chinese are doing a lot of copycat work. Indians are doing a lot of innovative R&D work based on what they learned over there. So these are the topics I've been researching, and it applies to Uruguay also because, you know, your challenge is to boost your economy, to boost innovation, and to learn from all you can from the rest of the world. So let me tell you some lessons right now. Let me tell you some of the things I've learned doing my research. First of all, what's an entrepreneur? Why do people start companies? Most of the people in the room that I could see were not young kids. They were not college dropouts. They were middle-aged people. I mean, most of you look like you're, mature people who have experience. In Silicon Valley, the myth is that the best entrepreneurs are young college dropouts. Believe it or not, that's false. The most successful people in technology in America, with a few exceptions, you have 4 or 5 very notable exceptions like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and so on, who started companies when they were very young. But the vast majority of entrepreneurs in America who are successful are aged 39. Okay, 39 or 40 is the average age of an entrepreneur, which means that most of you are still, within the range to become an entrepreneur. There are twice as many entrepreneurs who are over 50 as there are under 25. Twice as many over 60 as under 20 who build successful companies. The first lesson is that entrepreneurs are middle-aged, experienced people. They typically work for big companies, and I know this personally also, that you're now in your 30s, you are doing well in your career, but you really haven't made a fortune, you really haven't made an impact on the world. You wake up one day and you say, look, I have not done anything good for the world. And now you have this fire in your belly, and you have this desire to change the world. And that's when you take your ideas, you take your knowledge, you take your experience, and you start a company. So that's the typical entrepreneur in America, is a middle-aged, experienced executive, right? Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, what stops people from becoming entrepreneurs? This is very applicable to Uruguay and to the rest of South America, because this is a common problem that occurs everywhere outside Silicon Valley. Even in America, you have the same problem. What stops people from becoming entrepreneurs is fear of failure, the stigma associated with failure. I spent a lot of time in Chile. I'm advising the Chilean government. Juan Fontaine, the economics minister, he and I spent a lot of time together looking at the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem of Chile, and trying to understand how do we foster entrepreneurship over there. And when I started meeting entrepreneurs and meeting people and so on, what I realized was that Chile has the same problem that India and China used to have, and that parts of America have, and I'll bet you that Uruguay has, is that failure is stigmatized. If you fail, you're considered to have done something wrong. It's almost like being a criminal. So if you start a business and it fails, people look at you very badly. In Silicon Valley, they realized a long time ago that that's incorrect. That in the technology world in particular, success comes after experimentation. I'll bet you most of you have learned science in school. When you do experiments, you have a hypothesis, you have an idea, and then you try over and over again until you get it right. And eventually you prove the hypothesis or disprove the hypothesis. Well, that's what a company is. That you have an idea, you think that if you build it this way, customers will be interested in it. And you try it out. And most likely you'll fail because you're wrong. You don't know. You have to do it a number of times before you get it right. So in Silicon Valley, what they realized was that building a company is a repetitive process, that the same lessons that you learn from one company apply over and over again. Number 2, they realized that to get your company right, you have to do experimentation. You have to fail. And you have to keep trying again until you succeed. So in Silicon Valley, when you meet people and you tell them that, look, I built 3 companies which failed, and here's what I learned from them, they look up to you. I'll bet you if you did that in South America, people would look at you as if you're a loser and not want to talk to you again. Okay? That's a common mindset in most parts of the world, that if you fail, you're a disaster, that you've done something wrong. And that means that you only get 1 chance to do it, maybe 2 chances to do it, and after that, you're out. No one will ever fund you. Your wife will want to divorce you. Your parents will feel ashamed of you. You have a very bad name in society. So lesson number 2 is that you have to accept failure. That in the technology world in particular, you have to be able to start over and over again and keep experimenting until you get it right. Lesson number 3, it's all about mentorship and networking. In the technology world, what happens is that the lessons in building a company are always the same. That you have to go through a series of processes. For example, when you have an idea, you have to build the idea very quickly. You have to get it out to your customers. You have to test it with them. You have to go back and forth. You have to iterate. And you have to validate your idea. And then once you have your idea, you have to now think about a business model. A business model is the basics about taking your product, delivering it to customers, pricing it, charging for it, dealing with customer support, and so on, selling it, pricing it. All of these things have to go to a business model. So, and then there's how do you build a management team. There are common lessons to building any company. So what happens is that the first time you do it, you don't know how to do all these things. No one is born with the knowledge of finance or knowledge of customer support or all of these things. Some people have skills in marketing, others have skills in technology, others have skills in business management. No one has all of those skills. So if you're the CEO of a startup company, you're expected to know all of these things. To succeed, you have to have so many different skills which come together. But how can you have them, right? So what you need to do is you need to be able to get help from other people who've done it before. You need to get mentorship. You have to get seasoned entrepreneurs, experienced entrepreneurs to coach you. In most countries in the world, that's completely missing. Like even in Chile, what we found was that the mentor network was very weak. There weren't people ready to help other people. So this was a big disadvantage that the country had. Silicon Valley, it's all about mentoring and helping and so on. Almost, if you go around here, you can almost ask anyone for help, and they'll guide you. They'll share their experience with you. It's a very open, inclusive environment, and that's what gives this area a big advantage. Then the next thing is the actual physical networks, how people meet each other. One of the things which, I don't know if any of you have been to Silicon Valley or not, but when you come over here, you go to the coffee stores here, and you'll see people exchanging ideas. Every evening, there are multiple events going on where you can go and meet other people who are like you and exchange ideas. So it's all about networking. It's all about exchanging ideas and being open. One of the problems in Chile was, and one of the problems in most countries in the world, is that people don't share their ideas. They're afraid that if they talk about their idea, someone else will steal it from them and do it better. That's the problem, because that's not how it works. What happens when you share your idea is that you get feedback from others. The idea is not what's valuable. It's the business model and the execution that makes a difference. So to the extent that you can share your idea more and get input from all sorts of other people, you're more likely to become successful. And that's something that most people outside Silicon Valley don't understand. So what you have over here in this area, San Francisco, Stanford, Palo Alto, this whole region over here, is a mindset which is very different than anywhere else in the world, where you share information openly. That you have lots of people, many people with many ideas. You sit down with other people, you exchange ideas, you get feedback, you learn from each other, you go to someone for help, they'll help you. And then there's also a lot of funding that comes from being successful, that start giving back to other people, that start investing in other people. So this is the magic that happens over here in Silicon Valley. And this is what no other country has been able to replicate. Now, in India and China, you're beginning to see lots and lots of entrepreneurship. I've spent a lot of time there trying to understand why is it succeeding. It's succeeding because you have had thousands of people, actually hundreds of thousands of people, not hundreds of thousands, probably about 200,000 to 300,000 people altogether, going back to those countries and taking the Silicon Valley mindset back with them. They're mentoring, they're helping, they're teaching the locals how do you build companies, how do you interact with each other, how do you share ideas. So what's happened in India and China is that you've had this massive flow of talent going back and fertilizing those countries. Right? So these are some of the lessons. As I had gone to Santiago about 2.5 years ago. I was invited by the government to attend a conference on outsourcing. They were very proud of Chile's outsourcing industry. And I went there, started asking questions. Okay, how big is the industry? They're very proud that it's $800 million. So what are your ambitions? $5 billion. How are you going to get it to $5 billion? They said, well, we have, because the population of Chile is about 15, 16 million people. How many graduates do you have from your universities? About 1,000. So how are you going to take a small country like that and go from $800 million to $5 billion in the outsourcing industry. Not possible. And that's what I told them. And they were shocked when I said it to them. And they argued with me. They said, no, we have all of these poor people in Valparaiso. We have all these poor people in these other parts of Chile who we can engage. I said, no, you can't. It doesn't work like that. That the outsourcing industry will not just take any people and bring them in. You have to have a certain caliber of people. You have to have certain attitudes and certain education and so on. So I told them in no uncertain terms that they were headed for disaster, that this would not work. So after a while, they came back to me and said, Professor, what will work? I said, you know something? So I spent some time looking at the ecosystem and meeting entrepreneurs, and I got back to them and I said, you know something? That I don't believe that Chile can do it on its own. That you do not have the cultural things you need there to succeed. And again, they were very unhappy with me for saying that, because who wants to hear that you can't succeed like that? The trouble is, to change a culture takes generations. It takes 30 or 40 years. You know, no country can wait 30 or 40 years to boost innovation. So what I advised them was to rely upon immigration. Take advantage of America's stupidity. Let me take a side note and tell you about America's stupidity. America is a land where everyone wants to come right now. This is a land of immigrants. You know, everyone who talks about America talks about all these people that have come in and made America what it is. Do you know that in Silicon Valley, this is the most innovative place on this planet? That 52% of the startups are founded by immigrants. 52%. The startups here are founded by people like you and me, who were not born in America. They come here, they compete with natives, they become very successful, and then they start helping other people. And Silicon Valley is very welcoming. That first it holds you back because you're a foreigner, but once you succeed, it embraces you. You become part of the system. So Silicon Valley basically has been able to bring in people from all over the world and make and you know, everyone competes with each other, everyone helps each other, they fight each other, they friend each other, and this is why America is as great as it is, because of this competition that's happened. Here's the problem. Over the last 15 years or so, America brought in so many people on temporary visas. There are over 1 million skilled immigrants here and their families on temporary visas. It never expanded the number of green cards, permanent resident visas. So right top university from Stanford, because of the immigration problems. And America is battling. There's a lot of battles here about immigration. I mean, I'm sure you have the same battles in Uruguay. That you know, the people believe that immigrants take jobs away, and there are battles about unskilled immigrants, but the problem isn't being fixed. So what's happening is that there's a massive reverse brain drain from America. There are thousands of people leaving America every month, like India and China, to start companies. So getting back to Chile, I said, well, why don't you take advantage of that? Why don't you take advantage of America's stupidity? Why don't you invite these people to come to Chile instead? And they thought about it, and they said, you know, why would anyone come to Chile? Where, you know, I mean, we're all the way deep south. No one knows about the country. It's so, you know, secluded and so on. I said, here's why they'll come to Chile. Number one, because it's such a beautiful country. It's, you know, if you look at it's like California in reverse. It's a very, you know, open, you know, environment. People want to be in South America. South America, you know, worldwide is very well regarded and it's looked up to, and people think it's a very cool place to be. So then they said, well, how do we get them to come over here? I said, why don't you bribe them? Give them some money. And Nico Shea, who used to head up innovation, worked with the minister and came up with this scheme called Startup Chile. So what they do is that they give $40,000 to any entrepreneur that wants to come and live in Chile for 6 months. No conditions attached. What they do is that they select entrepreneurs to, you know, make sure that it isn't people who are coming to Santiago for vacation who want to go and hang out in Patagonia, that they qualify you, make sure that, you know, you have a real business plan and that you're really a committed entrepreneur. With those criteria, you come there, you live anywhere you want in Chile, they'll give you $40,000 just for doing your own thing, no strings attached. For 6 months you have to come and live, that's the only commitment you make. When Nico proposed this plan, there was a lot of pushback from the government. I think you can understand why. Number one, everyone thought that that there'll be problems with the locals because you're giving money to foreigners. Number two, the feeling was that Americans would never come there. It would only be the Nicaraguans that came there. I mean, I guess you have the Nicaraguans are the Mexicans of South America. Here, everyone worries about the Mexicans coming over. So they were worried about people from poorer countries coming over to Chile. So they'll only get people from the poor parts of South America coming there. And then they said that they'll come here and no one will want to stay. It won't do any good. They won't mix with the natives and so on. So we said, let's do an experiment. Nico and I persuaded the minister to do an experiment with 25 companies. Spend $1 million on trying out the experiment. So in August of last year, we launched Startup Chile. They basically put the word out saying that we will encourage entrepreneurs to come here. We'll give you $40,000 if you come. Now, they were afraid that they wouldn't get any applications. But I wrote about them in a tech blog called TechCrunch, and they were flooded with applications. They had more than 100 really good companies apply for those 25 spots. 23 of the companies showed up. 2 of them dropped out for other reasons. And within 6 months, everyone was amazed at how successful the experiment had been. Here's what happened. The foreign entrepreneurs started coming there and mixing with the locals. For every company that came in, ended up hiring 2 local entrepreneurs. 2 locals. So one company hired 2 Chileans. Now, they started going around to the local universities to start talking about Startup Chile and to encourage students to come and work for Startup Chile companies. So they started interacting with the local universities and the local scene. Then they started holding networking events. At first, the networking events were just for Startup Chile. Then they said, let's open it up to everyone. So you started having all sorts of local people come into the Startup Chile events. And then, for every entrepreneur, they brought their relatives in, they brought their friends in to come and visit them. So net-net, the project was a huge success because it really created a lot of excitement in the entrepreneurial segment. So they decided to scale the program up. Now they're going to bring in 1,000 companies over the next 3 years or so. And if you go to Santiago, I challenge you, go to the Startup Chile offices. You'll see it's like Silicon Valley, buzzing with activity, entrepreneurs helping each other. This is one thing that they do. Every evening, they have, what happens is that you have one group of entrepreneurs that specializes in one thing, another group that specializes in other things, so they help each other. If you need help with marketing, well, there's these experts in marketing who will help you. If you need experts in knowing how to do Android programming, there's these Android developers that will start coaching you. So they're helping each other. They're networking with each other. They're networking with the locals. The experiment has been a huge, huge success. And, everywhere I go in the world, people have heard of Startup Chile. So that was a very unique experiment which lit a fire under the ecosystem there, and it's buzzing with activity. You just have to go there to see how good it is. One step back, all right. So so that was a great experiment in Chile. Now, I've also been looking at other aspects of entrepreneurship, about how do you foster, what should the American government do to foster entrepreneurship? And my advice to the government, the U.S. government, has been that money is, because the question was, do we have to provide more money to entrepreneurs and so on? My advice, money is not the problem. It's education that's the problem. So I've been working with Kaufman Foundation. I've been working with other groups to come up with training programs for entrepreneurs, to come up with formal education, which teaches people how to start companies. What's a business plan? How do you sell? How do you market? And so on and so on. So in the United States, for example, there's a program called I-Corps, which is being launched at Stanford. Under Steve Blank, they're bringing in people from all over America, select people who want to become entrepreneurs, and teaching them the basics of entrepreneurship. So for Uruguay, I think that that's the sort of program that you need. That you need to set up U-Corps, basically. U-Corps means that you bring in some experts, help you develop the right curriculum, teaching the basics about entrepreneurship, and then you bring people in for 3 months at a time. You put them through training, and then you have to have mentor groups. There are a lot of Uruguayans who've left the country who've achieved a lot of success. You'll find that people all over the world want to get involved with what's happening in the country. That even though they left the country, their heart is still there. That they still care a lot about their motherland, and that they want to help and give back. What you need to do is to tap into their network. Select the top 100 Uruguayans who've left the country, who are experienced, and who want to give back and help entrepreneurs. So what you do is you take this U Corps program, and you, after you've taught the entrepreneurs the basics, you connect them with the people who have left the country, and you set up a mentorship program for them. And you can hold yearly events in which everyone comes together and interacts and so on. And then you also need to provide some seed funding so that when companies go through this process of learning, the most promising ones get small amounts of money, $10,000, $20,000 to seed their startups. I think if you try this experiment over there, you'll find that it makes a big difference. You know, try it with 100 companies in the first year, and if it works, then go to 1,000 companies. What you'll find is that there are amazing opportunities for you to solve the problems of the world and to boost the entire economy of the country. All right. I'm going to talk for 5 more minutes on one more topic, and then I'll let you ask me questions. One of the big debates that's happening in America right now is about whether innovation is dead. You know, there have been a number of books written about the fact that other than social media and internet, there's no other innovation happening. They are completely wrong. There are so many advances happening in technology right now in many different sectors. You know, for example, robotics. You know, for 30, 40 years, we've been dreaming about robots, cyborgs. We've been dreaming about these machines that'll be like human beings. But they never develop. We don't have robots right now serving us. Do you know why? Because each of these devices, to move, you know, to have physical movements in a device is easy, but to have the intelligence to do that is hard. They required computers. Computers used to be very big. That you know, my iPhone over here, 30 or 40 years ago, the same computing power would be in a massive mainframe. You would have a mainframe the size of the room you're in, which had the same computing power as that. Now it's all shrunk. So you can have these sophisticated devices within those robots. Also, talking about the iPhone, the new iPhone 4S has voice recognition. Voice recognition, you know, we've been dreaming about it for a long time, but it wasn't possible until recently because that also required computing power. But now, because computing has been increasing exponentially, suddenly voice recognition is possible, right? So voice recognition is going to change the world. So robotics is possible, voice recognition is possible. I'll tell you about another advance which is happening. You know, about 10, 12 years ago, for the first time, we sequenced the genome, the DNA of a human being. For the first time we did it, we spent billions and billions of dollars getting there. Guess what DNA sequencing costs right now? You can get a complete genome sequence for $10,000. Within 3 years, that genome sequencing will cost $100. Okay. Within 5 years, it'll be free. In other words, if you go and buy you know, it's like buying an iPhone in America. You can get this for free right now. If you buy a plan, you'll be able to get your DNA sequence for free, which means that massive amounts of information are now available about human beings. You can now start mapping the genome to your social media habits. You can now start mapping the genome to you know, to the health records of people in hospitals and so on and so on. The data becomes available. It's only in the next 2 or 3 years. I'm not talking about 10 years, 20 years from now. In the next 2 or 3 years, it'll become inexpensive. And today you can get enough data to start building applications for that. So if you folks are going to build applications, don't try to copy Silicon Valley. In fact, you can copy Silicon Valley for the Uruguayan market and for the South American market. Do that freely. I mean, in most cases, it's perfectly legal. But if you want to really change the world, start thinking about the next step. I'll give you another advance that's possible right now. 3D printing. That right now you can buy printers that'll print physical objects, plastic objects, metal objects, and these printers cost about $1,000, $2,000, not very expensive at all. Within 2 or 3 years, these will be the same price as laser printers. And it's not only plastic you're going to be printing, you're going to be able to print sophisticated metal devices, and you'll be able to print organs. Human organs will be able to be printed. You'll be able to print food, all within the next 5 years or so. This technology is rapidly converging, rapidly moving forward. Now, to the extent that you folks can get some 3D printers and start thinking about it, imagine all the applications that you can create from it. You can send, you're visiting your friends in Mexico, and you like this little toy for your child. You just you take a photo of it, you email it to your child, and you print it over there in Uruguay. I mean, that sort of technology is possible today. And you can start thinking ahead and taking advantage of all these technologies. I'm not going to get into more. I can talk for hours and hours about all the advances in technology and so on, but the point I'm making over here is that there's no reason why you being where you are, you can't make an impact on the world. You have the same advantage that entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley do. In fact, you have a great advantage because you're not bound by the constraints over here. Everyone builds the same stupid social media applications. You can think outside the box. You can try solving a completely different set of problems for South America and for the rest of the world. You actually have an advantage being where you are in that you can look to the next set of technologies and start mastering them. You don't have to depend on today's technologies. So there's no reason why where you are, you can't be building a thriving innovation ecosystem and lead the world in technology. That it's a small country in the middle of nowhere can be as successful as as the biggest countries in the middle of everywhere. So this is what you folks should be thinking about. How do I use my knowledge, my location, my experience, and my background as an advantage? I'll let you ask me questions, and I hope this was helpful.
So, bueno, no sé para dónde mirar, pero voy a mirar a la pantalla porque está por ahí. Thank you very much, Mr. Wadhwa. It was very interesting to have you here with us virtually. I'm going to ask you one question, and I think it has a lot to do with our Uruguayan psychology, I could say. How do you think public policies can help people overcome this fear of failure that you mentioned as one of the barriers for entrepreneurship?
Yeah, this is the same discussion I've had with Chile, because Chile was looking to do some public advertisements talking about failure. What the government can do basically is start talking about, saying what I said, that look, success means failure. Success comes after failure. That you can have your president, your ministers talking about the importance of experimenting and trying again, and so on. You can set up venture funds for people who've tried 2 or 3 times. And the message that gets out to the people, what you can do is you can set up a little venture fund only for people who've tried 3 times before. Everyone in the country will be shocked, saying, why are you funding failures? The message becomes because after you failed a number of times, the government can start funding people who are failed, and the government can be proactive in educating people. This is another thing that I think is important, to set up these boot camps where you educate entrepreneurs. In those boot camps, you can discuss it. You can talk about the importance of trying again, experimentation. You can teach them, about lean startups. Lean startups are all about failing very fast, of trying and then failing, trying and then failing, trying and then failing. So the government can make a big impact on the ecosystem. You're a small country. You're more, able to do things like this than big countries are, because the government is very motivated to make the country into an innovation hub to boost the economy. So, if the government sits down and starts saying the same things, right things, for almost no money, I'm talking about small amounts of money, you can really start reprogramming your people. And again, another thing I would do, this is the same advice I gave to Chile, bring in the entrepreneurs from all over the world. That you need the diversity from all over the world to help you boost your economy. So welcome skilled immigrants and let them come in and work with your people, interact, just like Startup Chile. Do something similar to that, so that you bring in foreign talent, not permanently. I'm just saying for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and bring in 5,000 or 10,000 entrepreneurs over that time period, not to impact your population, but just so that you have a core of people who can start sharing their knowledge and changing the local ecosystem.
¿Alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta al profesor Wadhwa? Se la intentamos traducir. No veo demasiado bien, pero si alguien me la acerca, ¿usted le acerca la pregunta? Mr. Wadhwa, just 1 minute, because we have one question in the audience and we need to translate it. Just
sure.
1 minute, thank you.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Carlos Gonela, soy uruguayo. Hace 27 años que me fui del país. Soy un emprendedor tecnológico radicado al norte de Argentina. Y concretamente, que creo que es el presente y el futuro de nuestros países, me dedico a hacer emprendimiento tecnológico, pero en ecosistemas sociales. Concretamente, trabajo exclusivamente en software libre, ¿sí? Y encuentro justamente en la línea de lo que plantea el profesor, que todavía no están dadas las condiciones en Uruguay para plantear este tipo de modelos de negocio. Entonces, no debería, para acelerar ese plazo que mencionaba el profesor de 30 o 40 años, vienen los nativos digitales y viene la generación I. Lo que ocurre es que no se los deja participar a los jóvenes en las políticas de Estado. Es decir, debería ser, en la opinión suya, profesor, fundamental formar en emprendimientos sociales en estos países y darles más participación en las políticas de Estado a los jóvenes.
Bueno, vamos a tratar de traducir lo que nos contó el señor Borega. Capaz que le pido ayuda porque alguna parte se me ha perdido. Mr. Wadhwa, Carlos Borega, an entrepreneur who has been living, he was talking to you, he has been living 27 years out of the country in Argentina. He works in technology, especially in the free software. And he wants to know, what do you think about teaching entrepreneurship to young people, especially in the social area, entrepreneurship in social area?
Yeah.
Is this clear?
First of all, I think teaching entrepreneurship to children is a very good thing, because this is a skill that goes with them through their lifetime. They may not become entrepreneurs the day they graduate from school, but what happens is that when they know about the basics of a business, as they have worked in big companies or whatever they do, when they have ideas come into reality, number one. Number two, social entrepreneurship. That's a very, very good question, because I think that's extremely important. I have been very critical about Silicon Valley, because Silicon Valley, the culture is based on greed. But even in Silicon Valley, there are a number of people who are trying to do social good, who are trying to change the world, who are trying to give back to society and so on. It's really, really, really important. And what you'll find is that social entrepreneurship doesn't have to mean that it's all about charity and non-profit. You can build socially good products and make a lot of money also. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, this concept of socialism, which means you can't, you can't build wealth and so on, is wrong. You can do social good and still be building wealth. So you can build profitable companies by doing good for the world. So I encourage you to think of ideas which will improve the lives of people in South America, which will lift people out of poverty, which will fix the problems of infrastructure, which will improve education, and do it in a profitable way. Because by making it profitable, you build long-term sustainable businesses. So which means that you don't have to keep relying on charity to fund your business. So it can be a win-win if you have the right idea. And like I said, that was a great question. And I want all of you to start thinking about how can you improve the lives of people in your country and people in other countries. It's a very good thing to be doing.
So, Mr. Wadhwa, thank you very much for your time, for your patience, so that this holographic technology was set. And we hope to see you soon in real time, this next time here in Uruguay. So thank you.
I look forward to visiting. Thank you. That was pretty decent.
Bueno, primera teleconferencia holográfica, primera experiencia de comunicarse así con un ser vivo, pero que no está acá. En particular, le queremos agradecer mucho a Antel por el apoyo tecnológico que dio para hacer posible esta conferencia del profesor Wadhwa.